Welcome to This Week with Who's in the House with Michael. I got my famous guest here, Todd SanGiovanni. Todd's joining me this afternoon. We've known each other for a little while. Todd, welcome.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, man. So, I know a little bit about you. I don't know a lot about you, but we're going to expose you to everybody right now. So, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Patchogue. Was pretty much born and raised there. Went to school. In fact, even went to college at St. Joseph. So being the oldest of four, I was kind of all hands on deck.
Let's talk about the four siblings. So you have how many brothers, sisters? How does that work?
You're the first. Four. I'm the first. I have a brother, Mark, my sister, Louise, and then Jesse, who's the youngest.
What did these siblings do? What kind of careers do they have?
Let's see. Mark is in banking, but in management. And my sister is a school teacher. She's in Florida. And Jesse works for Northwell, my youngest brother.
Oh, that's terrific. When you were growing up in Patchogue, what were your hobbies? Into sports?
I played various sports. I played soccer. I wrestled. Wanted to play football, but I wasn't allowed to. But I played, only on a weekend like most kids did. Didn't tell my mother. Played deck hockey.
In the street or like in an arena?
No, I never played in an arena before. Either street or actually, anyone that's familiar with Patchogue, Medford Avenue School, the teacher's parking lot, back when liability wasn't much of a concern. Yeah. We would play there, and then afterwards go to Burger King, which is still there across the street. One of the few things that exist.
I talked to a few people who reminded me they would play, hockey in the street, and you put the net out, and then the car comes. And it made me think of the Wayne's World. Game on, game off. You slapping the puck right. And then there was a point when I was a teenager where we got into a little deck hockey. I don't know what it was, a little club, and we had to come from East Northport out to Center Reach for this outdoor skating arena that was converted. Basically, not an arena, a rink, but they basically put down the mat. There was a plastic mat, and we were playing on that. It's kind of cool. Did you play on that?
Never played on that. There was a little pond that we played over in Lakewood, and it was a shallow pond, so it would freeze pretty quickly when it stayed cold.
Yeah.
And we played ice hockey.
It was cool because you wear sneakers, but you had to wear shin guards because if you went down, you're sliding across plastic. And the ball moved quickly. It was a different game. But what other hobbies did you have? Were you into music?
Very much so. My cousins were very influential, who were older than me. Biologically, they're actually my second cousins, but we're only about 5 and 4 years apart. And they were a big influence on music. So I got into music at a very early age. I'd borrow albums from them, and they took my interest. And then I learned to appreciate some of my own music that I discovered on my own as I matured a little bit.
It's funny. I have a similar situation. I have second cousins who are close to me in age, not my father, and again exposed me to music that the first time I heard Genesis. Mel, you know who you are. But you know what I mean. So they have a similar experience. What'd your parents do when you were growing up? When you were a kid, were they both working? Was just your dad working?
Just my dad. My mom didn't work until my youngest brother was in high school, and she just worked as a receptionist in a dental office down the road. But raising, 4 kids was a full-time job for her, and I'm glad she was around. We probably would have got a lot more trouble, honestly, without supervision. And then my dad, he was a graphic artist, and then went into the mortgage business. My mom had congestive heart failure back in, I think, 81. In fact, I was playing hockey, and I came back, and I learned, my grandmother called me that my mom was in the hospital with congestive heart failure, and my father said, you know what, I better do something that I have flexibility where I can work locally, and so we got into the mortgage business back then.
What was he doing before mortgages?
He was a graphic artist.
Oh, really? It's a huge transition.
Oh, yeah.
They're not even related fields.
You go from staring at a graphic desk, one of those drafting desks for 8-10 hours a day, to interfacing with people and talking about amortization and loan products.
That's funny you said that, because I haven't even heard the word or the terminology drafting in a while, because my dad actually had a year at school for drafting, had a desk, and started out drafting. And I moved out of that quickly. And it was a thing back, I guess, at that time. Must have been a big career. Good thing they got out because the computers just destroyed all that.
Oh yeah.
Very interesting. So your dad went into mortgage banking, and he did that until he retired, or
Till 2009 when he retired.
that's cool. When you were growing up, how were you in school? Were you a good student?
I was an average student.
What do you think you were focused on in school?
Not academics. Music, hanging out with friends, pretty much like most kids.
Just getting through, getting by.
Yeah, just getting by. That was like, all right, my grades are good enough.
Good enough to not get
Yeah,
grounded.
I could have tried a lot harder. Yeah, but that's not important to you when you're young. You don't.
I think that's
that
true of
way.
a lot of kids. What do you, when you were growing up, when you were coming into junior high school and high school, did you have an idea what you wanted to be when you grew up?
No idea. I worked as a sound engineer for a couple friends' bands, a local community church, and then I realized that I would get bored after a while. Once you got everything dialed in and sounding right, and then
Just
it's like would just sit there pretty much until there's a problem. So I needed to be a little bit more engaged, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this for a living.
This was during high school years?
This was during high school years, yeah.
So did you go to college?
I did.
Did you know what you were going to go to college for, or did you already know, or you just weren't sure?
I wasn't sure. Yeah, general studies, mathematics. I knew I'd be doing something in applied math for some reason, but it wasn't that.
When do you think did you grow up in college? Did you become a little more academically oriented?
I put more of a priority, especially when I was paying for it.
Yeah, I just said that to somebody today. Once I knew I was paying for it, I kind of leaned into it a little bit. I had a similar experience. I just wasn't into it, and I didn't have confidence in myself. But then when I started performing, and I grew more confidence, and I challenged myself to work a little harder. So when in college did you kind of figure out, or didn't you figure out what your career was going to be? Was it after college or while you're still in school?
I'd say during it, yeah. I was in various jobs. I worked in food preparation, and I actually got into the optical business for a while, and had interest in a company at some point, sold it, and then in between there, I worked with my dad while I was in college, helping him with mortgages. I was putting together loan packages, clearing conditions for title and commitment, and I had no interest at that point in getting into the business.
Earlier, I think you said your brother was in banking also.
Yes.
What was he doing?
I took him to his first interview with Bank of New York, and he started as a teller, worked his way out to the floor, and he realized he liked it, and went to school, furthered his education, and he never married, so he pretty much work was his life.
Where did it lead him to managing the bank, or?
Yes, he went to management, and then I think he was at HSBC for a while in the financial headquarters in the financial market. He managed that. Then he did some territory management for a while, and now he's in 3 states right now. He covers for PNC Bank.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. And he never married?
Never married. No.
All right. And then go over your sister again. She one works for Northwell.
That's my youngest brother. Yes.
Youngest.
My youngest brother.
Your youngest brother works for Northwell. Doing what?
He's in human resources.
Okay, that's good. Good. And what's your sister do?
She's a school teacher. She's in Florida.
Okay, what age group is she teaching?
Elementary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very interesting. When so you had a little exposure to working part-time for your dad, helping him out, pushing loans together and gathering docs and all that. What was the epiphany in college? When did that come around and you thought, all right, I know what I'm going to do?
When I started meeting with clients, this was before cell phones were popular, and started talking to them, and the human component to it is what it really intrigued me. Helping people, and you look at math and running numbers, it doesn't really mean much until you put the human element to it, and then you're realizing how people, in particular, my favorite are first-time home buyers, achieving the dream of home ownership, and vicariously I get to live that all over again when I help them out, and I enjoy that immensely.
So what did you do when you graduated college? What kind of work did you get into?
I was still in the optical business, and then still helping my dad out
On the retail side?
on the retail side.
Okay,
yeah.
good. And you're helping your dad out?
Helping my dad out, and then I sold my interest in a company that I had, and I went and worked not for my dad, but I worked with him at that point, and I haven't looked back since.
So you've been in the mortgage business, and you became a loan officer, and that's what you've been doing. Your father kind of handed it off to you, kind of got associated to it. So it's something you've been doing a long time. Because I'm not going to age you here, but you talked about learning it a little bit while you're in college. So
Yeah, that was the 80s. So fast forward probably about 10 years after that's when I went in full time at that point. So this was probably late 90s.
We meet people who jump into real estate and jump out. We meet people who jump into mortgage and jump out real quick. Everybody thinks they're going to grab a quick buck, but when we meet people who are in it for a longer haul and in the career, it talks a little bit more to their experience and their commitment to their career, and I think that's an important piece. So where's your journey been as a mortgage loan officer? You've been a couple of banks along the way?
Yeah, a few banks. Some of them don't exist anymore. But you learn to change with the times. I was with Washington Mutual. I was covering 6 branches, and then the whole world fell apart. But each time something like that happens, you learn to grow from that experience, and all right, I got through this. And when difficult markets come, you know how to all right, I've seen this before. It maybe has a different face, but it's familiar, and you know how to pivot and navigate through it.
Yeah.
And meeting more people now and trying to bring value to real estate professionals, and also explain what products and resources are available to their customers. And
Love. What about children? Do we have children?
I have 2 wonderful girls, actually young ladies, I should say.
Yeah.
My oldest turns 26 on Friday,
It's a baby.
and my youngest is 23. Christina is a freelance photographer, and Marissa is head coach for Orange Theory. She does
That's cool.
group classes. And
Christina's the oldest?
Christina's the oldest, yeah.
That's great. That's great. Are they both doing what they love, and are these careers they're going to continue with?
Absolutely. It took a little while, but it took my oldest to find what they want. But learning what they love to do and figuring out how to make money out of it, is not the easiest thing. And I think both of them are just starting to figure that out and figure out their self-worth.
It's part of growing up.
Yeah.
And you lose that ideal of what you think it's going to be, and you have to get a reality check of how you're going to make it work, right? What does Christina's the oldest? She's the photographer.
Yes.
What kind of specialty? What kind of photography is she doing?
Her experience is pretty extensive. She's done models for online apparel, and she's done for restaurants. For social media content.
Like food photography?
Yes.
That's highly specific. It's not the same as taking a profile picture of somebody. It really is very different. In fact, I was recently at a relatively new restaurant in Stony Brook, and they actually had a screen TV up like this. And it was interesting because on the screen, they were showing the menu, but they were showing the food as they were cooking it, right?
Oh, wow.
And one of the things, because it was a Vietnamese restaurant, and it's kind of new. What do I know about Vietnamese food, right? I'm willing to sample. But you're reading the menu, and if you look up, you could see them, how they're cooking it. And what I noticed was the photography was amazing. It's not just a guy standing over with a camera. The lighting was perfection. Steam was showing, and the colors were popping. I mean, whoever did it was really, really on point. And I recognize that because I'm a food guy, and it's just not easy to do that. So, I respect the fact that she learned how to do this because it's just not easy. It's not the same.
Now I know where I'm taking it for her birthday.
Yeah, that's where you're gonna go. I'm telling you, you're gonna see it. It's gonna blow your mind. Early in my career, I ran a restaurant that was part of a national brand, and because it was in the city, the media company would always use our restaurant to do photography for the food that was going to appear in a commercial. And I watched them then. I mean, they would take food and they would do what they had to do to it to make it look right for the print. But it's not the same as the food I would bring out of the kitchen. You know what I mean? Like they would have to get the color right, they'd doctor it a little bit sometimes, getting the lighting, the backgrounds. There was a lot of stuff to wet it down to give it a sheen. And there were all these little tricks they were doing, but I didn't really get it. But, it's interesting because I would see like a sizzling platter come out of the kitchen in the commercial, and I'd look at the commercial like, I can't produce that tomorrow. It's not going to look like that when I make it at the restaurant. It's misleading. So let's talk about Marissa or Melissa?
Marissa.
Marissa. What is she's a fitness trainer, basically.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did she go to school for that, or is that?
She did. She went to Suffolk Community. I was kind of hoping she'd further her education after she got her associate's degree, and then COVID hit. And we're still having dialogue about her going back, but
Well, she'll have to get there. She's old enough now just to figure that out. The more you push, the more she's going to back away, right?
I've backed away. Yeah, it's something you have to learn. You don't want them to make the same mistakes that we did, and you're like, all right, I got to back off. Sometimes they have to learn this for themselves without saying, "I told you so." I'm here. I love you. It's okay.
I'm doing a lot of "I told you so" these days, but in my head, I'm not saying it out loud.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there watching it going,
internalizing it.
So, like, if for her long term, I would imagine that being a trainer over the long haul probably isn't enough. Do you think she'll maybe have her own studio at some point, do something like that?
I certainly hope so. You always want your kids to aspire for more and not just settle. We do that in our job every day.
Yeah.
Aspire for to be better people, to help our clients more. I mean, another month we'll be talking about, New Year's resolutions. Why wait till then? Start now.
I know.
It's easier said than done, though, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a quick minute to remind everybody that we are on Spotify with our podcast, Who's in the House with Michael. The full-length interview will be on my YouTube channel. Charlie will post little clips of this all over social media. We'll be on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and you can find us there. And at that point, we'll certainly have all Todd's contact information up for anybody who might want to reach out. So let's pick up where we left off before. You're a loan officer in the mortgage industry, and you've been here long enough. And I think what's important about that is you watch the cycles come and go in business, and we see that in real estate, and some people get in and get out, and the long-term professionals, they learn how to be successful in any of the markets. Whatever's happening, they figure out the angle to play. Could you say the same about yourself with the experience you've had watching the mortgage industry go through changes, watching interest rates go through lots of changes over the years?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you have to adapt with the times. And, most recently, as you know, first-time home buyers are, my favorite group to work with. I work with everybody, so I don't want to say I'm not going to help somebody. I want to help everybody. But first-time home buyers probably represent about half of my clientele.
Probably for the same reason I like working with a first-time home buyer. They don't really know enough to try to muscle it and try to, change what we do. They trust us to guide them. I find when I work with people who are a little older, who have sold a few houses, bought a few houses, they have some experience, but the experience may not apply to the current market conditions, and it becomes a little bit of a struggle. So I would like to believe you have a similar kind of experience with a first-time home buyer where there's some trust. They let you guide them through the process a little bit, right?
100%. They're usually very eager, try to set expectations for them as far as timeline, supporting documents, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. Like, not changing jobs, don't co-sign for anyone, don't take any new debt out.
Yeah, no crap.
That type of stuff. I mean, it would sound simple, but you see people sometimes that, I changed out my car and now I have a higher car payment. You're like, all right, now how do we undo this? So having those conversations ahead of time with experience, say, all right, when's your lease expire? Looking at the credit report and say, okay, What's this going to look like? Cars are more expensive than they were 3 years ago, and everything else is.
A few years ago, we're in the fourth quarter of 23, because somebody might watch this video in future. And leading up to most recent times, we've had a crazy housing boom driven by crazy low interest rates. People got kind of spoiled with those interest rates. You and I know over the course of the last 60, 70 years, if you look at decade by decade, we're still in great shape. But the interest rates that have been around for the last, probably 3-4 years were pretty darn aggressive. And things have changed a little bit. How was the market different for you 2-3 years ago with low interest rates in that 3 to 5% range? What was that like then? Everybody getting into it? Is more of a frenzy?
Yeah, and no. I found people pretty much just as like rate sensitive, if you will, back then, because they like, all right, what if I could do better? And you always want that. And now it's like, I'm talking to new home buyers and they're looking at mortgage payments that are, $5,000 a month. I'm like, that's a pretty big nut, for a new couple, and they don't have a child yet, and they don't know what that cost is going to look like, what the work schedule is going to look like. So I try to have some dialogue about these things too, the hard conversations that most don't want to talk about. And so they understand what they're getting to. All right, yeah, you can afford the home right now, but in 3 years, what's that going to look like when baby pops out, or maybe have twins?
Yeah. Well, now getting the fourth quarter of 23, we've been seeing, the Fed's been working on inflation, and they've been hiking up rates, and those rates have been affecting the mortgage business, which is immediately directly affecting the real estate business. And we see rates in the range that are close to 8%, sometimes 8, sometimes a little less. What's different now with the people you're talking? What are the changes? How is it affecting you, and how is it affecting your customers?
Actually, we've been pretty lucky. The past week, rates have dialed back a little bit, so we're like in the mid 7s now. Which
I bought my house at 8, so
after being at 8, yes. Yeah, mine was 9.5% my first house.
Yeah. When I started looking, they were double digits. So, but so many people got spoiled with 3%. I mean, it was 2.5%, 2% for a minute. But that 3, 4, 4.5% range, it stayed for a while, and people just are having a hard time swallowing 7, 7.5, 7.25. It's crazy. Do you see less people coming and applying for mortgages right now? Have you felt it back off, or not necessarily?
I haven't yet. In particular, we have a great first-time homebuyer product right now. It's a community reinvestment program, and that particular product has 2 ways to qualify besides being a first-time homebuyer. It can be based on geography or a low to moderate income census tracking. So I have a search engine that shows what properties fall in those tracking areas, and areas that'll actually surprise you. Believe it or not, in the Dix Hills and Melville area, there's a nice pocket over there.
So we're not getting credits to purchase a home in a slum area, basically.
Yeah, it's based on income. I mean, there are areas that are, I'm not going to say what they are.
Ready for redevelopment.
Yeah, ready for redevelopment, and they certainly need it. And people aren't looking there for school districts.
Yeah,
we'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
leave it
sure.
at that. But there are other areas too. And the other way you can qualify is income. So the household income for this particular product is $124,880, which is higher than the city. Actually, you figure the boroughs would look at something similar. And it's more like 90,000 or just under it, I think, for this particular program. So I can have someone that's have 2 incomes. Mrs. Homeowner or future homeowner has a greater salary than Mr. Future Homeowner. I could take just one of their incomes applied. They both can own the home if they so choose to, or decide not to and take advantage of it later on if this is a starter house for them.
So is it always a first-time home buyer, or not necessarily in this program?
It's first-time home buyer. So
Okay.
The definition would be not owning any real estate for 3 years. Also, we've made exceptions for someone that's selling their marital home that's getting divorced. They don't have to wait the 3 years. So they're buying a new home and they're selling the marital home. They can be considered a first-time home buyer again.
So if somebody comes to you, a buyer, first-time home buyer, and they do qualify for this, what kind of a difference does it make in an interest rate for them? For example, and again, these numbers are not quoted. They'll change by the time this interview is finished. But just to get an idea, we're talking about the normal 30-year fixed right now in that 7.5, 7.75, hovering in that high sevens, right? Comparably, if somebody was applying and qualified in this program, how much of a change would it be in an interest rate?
5.875%, 30-year fixed.
It's pretty significant.
No points, no pre-penalty payment like some programs have. You can get down payment assistance as well and dovetail that in. It's 3 or 5% depending which program you go to as the down payment. And there's no private mortgage insurance on it either. It's self-insured.
So that alone gives you a better monthly payment to achieve, qualification.
I had an applicant 3 weeks ago came to me. He's buying in Franklin Square. He came to me and I'm saving him $804 a month.
That was my next question. Give me an idea of what 2.5% improvement looks like on a monthly payment.
It depends on the purchase price and how much the borrowing, of course. But it's been hundreds of dollars. Pretty much a car payment is with the difference I've been seeing with it.
Hey, so somebody who
it's considerable.
Might qualify for a $450,000 house at the normal 30-year fixed, if they get into a program like this, they're probably looking at a house over 5?
I would say so. And a lot has to do with taxes, as you know. That makes a big impact on their buying power.
Let's talk about the bank you're with now. Valley Bank?
Yes.
Okay. So is Valley a direct lender?
They are.
Okay. And is this a special product that Valley gets that other banks don't get, or how does that work?
This particular product is portfolio. Portfolio means that we lend our own money and it's kept in-house. So the servicing isn't sold off. We service it in-house. And we use pretty much conventional guidelines to do it for the most part.
So it gives you a little bit of a unique edge that your bank can offer, and you can offer a product that not all the banks have, right?
100%.
Are there other banks that do this?
There might be some other banks that do it. I'm not familiar with any of them. I certainly don't think anyone has a REIT that's in the 5s right now.
No, I haven't heard that. What are some of the tips that you might give to a first-time home buyer on if they're thinking about buying a house and they're thinking it might happen next year? What kind of guidance would you give them in preparation for that?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Most people that are young and looking for a home, or not maybe young, but looking for a home, they could be our age and looking for a first-time home buyer.
Because we're not young.
And no. And the most important thing is to think about it ahead of time and say, okay, if they're going to be buying within a year, we should be talking now about it and what that'll look like. What resources are available to them for down payment assistance. Long Island Housing Partnership, we're a preferred bank with them. And my boss actually is on the board of directors. They have a lot of great resources. There's a Suffolk County Consortium in Nassau County. A lot of the townships, I know Brookhaven has a down payment assistance program as well. The state, Sunny May, has one. So there's a lot of resources. So you have to apply for that stuff ahead of time. There's certain times of the year you can apply for it. And then there's home counseling that comes with it. Also understanding what a mortgage payment is going to look like, how much money is going to be involved with the down payment, how much closing costs are going to cost. Make sure they have an attorney that does real estate and real estate exclusively. I use this example all the time. Oh, I got a friend or a family member and they're an attorney. I'm like, great. What do they do? Corporate law. Great. Okay. Let's try to put this in a different perspective. I'm a physician. All right. I'm a podiatrist. You need heart surgery. You're going to ask me to do that? Mm-hmm. They usually get it most of the time at that point.
Yeah, we've seen that. The attorney is obviously qualified, but they're trying to earn their money. They end up making these deals fall apart, actually, instead of keeping it going. Where real estate attorneys, they are used to working on the same types of contracts, and they don't look for conflict; they look for resolution. So, with a home buyer, I think it's very similar to my experience when I talk to new home buyers. Is start talking to me in advance. Don't wait until I'm ready to go shop for a home tomorrow. There's some planning that you could do in advance to really position yourself well. And it really starts with me getting them to a loan officer, because the loan officer is going to look at their income, look at their situation, understand what their goals are, and then kind of help them plan that. Maybe you're not ready today. I have people come to me and say, I'm ready to start buying a house right now. and we send them to the loan officer, and after the loan officer goes through it, they're really not ready financially. There's some things they need to manipulate and do. Maybe they have to pay off a couple of credit cards. Maybe they're finishing a car payment. Maybe they don't have enough cash saved. Maybe they're planning on getting a gift, the cash for gift, and you need to have that tracked and documented and all that. So there's things to put in order in advance. And for me, I think it's a good idea to go meet your loan officer early, just to understand what am I up against in the future and how does that lay into my plan so you can strategically put yourself in the position you want to be in.
100%.
What are some of the mistakes? You started talking about it before. What are some of the mistakes people make once you get them in approved or you get them to get under contract and they're processing a loan? What happens? What are the kinds of things that happen that make deals fall apart?
Besides having an attorney, have 3 contracts that I'm waiting for. The agreed sale price happened 2 weeks ago. The inspection was done, and the contracts aren't out. All 3 deals, and they're all different ones. One in particular is a situation where the person passed away, and then it's an estate thing. So there's 3 people that have to sign off on it. That part I kind of get, but everything's done electronically these days, as we know.
Yeah.
But setting expectations is important, and taxes are very important. I mentioned that too. Even though they're pre-approved, some people don't put the amount of taxes that are on it, or they don't pay attention to it. I'm like, well, I'm approved for $550, and I'm like, yeah, the taxes were $12,000 we discussed.
Or the taxes aren't stated accurately.
That too.
No one's verified them, so you think you got a deal, and then when the real taxes come through, now we have a problem. Right?
There's star exemptions on there, and all of a sudden they realize, like, okay. So I usually try to look at it and find out what they are, not what NMLS says or what Zillow says, and
go to the source.
Go right to the source.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes there's a village tax nobody knows about, and it's not stated.
Yeah.
And so when you find these taxes are not what we think they are, they're understated, it changes the qualification, doesn't it? And that can make a deal fall apart pretty quick.
Or if they stop buying out east and further out east, and there's the Pine Barrens tax as well. So if they're not aware of that, all of a sudden they're looking in Pacho. You're like, you know what? I'm going to look out east. I'm going to look in Riverhead now.
To me, I would say that once we get into a transaction with somebody, and I get them under contract and I hand them off to the loan officers who's done the pre-approval, and now we're under contract. You got the contract. The appraisal happens, and we start processing the loan. The thing that I would tell them is stay in touch with you. Well, let's find out what's happening with the rate. Certainly you might be doing rate locks with people at certain points in time, and maybe you advise to do it or not to do it or to wait. But there are other things that are going to happen. Don't buy a new car. Don't buy a new furniture set. Don't use your credit up. Don't start. There are things that need to be happening fluently to make sure we get to the finish line. Good loan officers and good real estate agents are working together and coaching their buyers through this process, and
hopefully all communicating too.
That's really important, right?
100%.
Very often people come with their own people. That's fine. It's fine. But the challenge is we're kind of left out a little bit, and I may not know what's going on behind the scenes when we're working with our own kind of team. The lawyers in communication with me. I'm talking to the loan officer. We're having conversation behind the scenes to help solve problems before the client even finds out. Because I hate it for when a client to find out a problem and then I find out after that. It's stressful enough to buy your first house. It really is very stressful. Even if everything goes smoothly, it's super stressful. So I like to solve problems I can and keep it off the radar so people don't have any undue burden and stress, right? Any other pitfalls, things that happen that can blow a deal up?
You hit on it earlier. Getting gifts, there is a correct way to do it. I had this happen a couple of years back, where a gentleman had money and he decided, like, well, I got money in the safe, and he happens to deal in minerals, and he had some of the minerals that he liquidated, and he decided to put the money in the bank, and like, all right, I kind of need to know where this came from, and it created a little bit of a problem. He's like, what's my money? I could put it in anytime I want. I'm like, no, I got to show that you liquidated the mineral and whatever. I think it was silver, I think is what he had. And I have to show it source into the account. They gave me a little bit of a hard time. Like, listen, you want to close the bank's rules if they're lending the money.
But that's not a bank, your bank's rules. That's banking industry.
That's an agency, yeah.
That's an industry thing.
Yeah.
So that's, again, important why these conversations are happening. Again, I have buyers that are coming to me. They're ready to get going. We set them up with the loan officer, and as they start going through the process, maybe they weren't as prepared. Maybe they're not qualified for as much as they thought. And good loan officers are going to send them back home and not just stamp approval on something. They're going to put them in a position to do the homework and get their affairs in order to be in a better position, right?
100%. I like what you said about the pre-approvals, and like there are people out there that don't really look at everything and they rubber stamp their pre-approvals. And character, I got a gentleman I'm working right now. He's a Nassau County police officer and got a very, very steady, solid job, and he's a great buyer. And I said, how much am I allowed to share to talk to these people about you getting the home? And sometimes they'll go with a little bit lower offer, just knowing like, all right, this guy is on top of everything. He knows what he's doing. I like everything he had to say. I'm going to go with this deal because I know it's going to be easier rather than some other company you never heard about.
For a smooth transaction, good realtors are always validating the pre-approval they have for a buyer to make sure that they're in a position to put them in a contract, because nobody wants to buy a house, get under contract, and then lose it because they didn't have their affairs in order. But on the other side, in a competitive market, when there's 5, 10, 15, 25 offers out there, the seller's agent is not just going to look at the highest price offer. They're going to present all the offers, but they have to look at the top grouping of offers and vet them out to make sure they can get to the finish line before they present them. So those seller's agents, they're going to call the loan officers. They're going to call you and say, hey, your client, Joe Smith, has made an offer on the house, and I just want to verify some information with you and make sure that you actually did your due diligence and you verified income. You verified credit reports, credit scores. You have verified cash on hand. We need to know some things because there are plenty of loan officers that don't pick up the phone we have no access to. Yeah. And I've had great experiences with loan officers that I wasn't working with. My buyer brought them in, maybe because I got a discount from their company to work with a certain bank. And these loan officers were proactive and reached out to me and said, I understand you work with my client. And let me tell you all about them. Like you just started talking about this police officer. They have had their job for 10 years, their credit scores or whatever. And they have the cash on hand. They're good to go. And if you need me, I'm right here. That's a great situation. That's what people really want. They want the team communicating to get them through. What do you say to, excuse me, buyers right now who are saying, coming in and they're finding out that the mortgage rates are 7 and whatever they are, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till they come down. What is a loan officer? What do you tell them? You going to tell them to wait until the interest rates drop?
That's not a conversation I'm typically going to have, and I'm going to look at their current housing situation. Are they living with family? Are they paying rent right now? When's the lease expire? What's the renewal going to look like because rents have gone up in tandem as well. So the housing shortage is not just for homes, but it's rentals too. That's driven that market up. So they could be
paying more for monthly rent than even with a higher rate mortgage, you're saying?
Exactly. So they pay a little bit. Maybe they're paying a little bit more, but they have pride of ownership. They get the write off the tax, the interest on the mortgages up to, and the SALT tax up to $10,000, of course. And then they have pride of home ownership. If they're going to make improvements to it and buy drapes and shades for those windows, it's their home. It's not a temporary living situation.
You're building equity, building wealth. You're building on the American dream.
And then rates at some point are going to come down. I don't have a crystal ball. I didn't bring it with me today, but I'm thinking that the market's going to improve a little bit in the springtime before the election. I think we might not going to see 4s and 5s, but maybe 6s we might see, and I think that might be a good opportunity to spark people's interest. But rates will eventually come down, and if they don't, the values are going to keep going up. So anyone that's paying private mortgage insurance or need equity to pull out of their home to make improvements, consolidation, or whatever they want to do, that's going to be available to them.
Right, you made a good point. You might wait for that rate to decline, but while you're doing that, the price of the house is increasing. Are you saving anything? Maybe not. That's when your math skills come in, and you can do the math and calculate it out. Do we talk about refinance with people? Get in the game when you want to get in the game, and then consider refinancing in a period of time down the road? Is that a conversation?
It happens every time, and probably half of them bring it up to me now. And can I refinance? We reach out to me, and they want me to be involved and know that, all right, we're buying in a rising rate environment. Better times are coming around. Please reach out to me when they do. And so it's my job to keep them informed and let them know what's going on in the current rate environment.
And repeat business. You
Yes.
work with the same customer over and over again. You build a relationship. I had another question on the tip of my head here. Ooh, it's slipping away.
Mortgage loan officer for life.
Yeah.
We're in a relationship business, Mike.
Yeah. No, I had a thought I was going to talk about.
Not the
we
real
talked about
estate
the interest
business.
rates coming down, values going up. You're saying, you're suggesting we'll probably see interest rates reduced by the spring, right? Well, for me, I'm not going to get anybody. If I start shopping with you for a house now, and let's just say December, going to get you under contract, you're really not going to be in that house until pretty much close to the spring. So are rate locks more popular in a market where the interest rates are higher or going down? Does that affect the concept of locking in a rate?
It does. A lot of it's forecasting, where the trajectory of the market's going, relying on industry experts and information, and then also the timeline of when someone needs to close. Can this person afford to wait it out if they have a contract that's on or about 30 days or 45 days? Probably not. If rates spike up, will that person qualify at that point? So these are conversations we have to have with people. Like, yeah, you qualify now at 8%, but they go to 8.5%. This might be a different conversation now. So
that's a really good point, because a year ago, year and a half ago, the rates were low, and all of a sudden they started creeping up, finally getting to where they are now. People who were under contract, who were approved at those rates, by the time the rate crawled up in the 2-3 months that they were waiting to close, they lost their qualification for the house. They no longer qualified. So we saw a lot of properties come back on the market. And that's why deals are falling through. And you might see that now if you're looking at a house and it's an offer was accepted, it goes under contract. 3 months later, you see it back on the market. That could be one of the reasons that the changing interest rates change that buyer's affordability for that house.
And that's why people should stay engaged looking at homes, because maybe they had an offer and it was $20,000 over ask, and they might be able to grab that house for $20,000 less than that, or at ask, perhaps. And the people are going to be more motivated right now and more serious that are out there looking right now.
Right.
Tire kickers, they're going to dwindle off in the next couple of weeks with the holidays going
There's
up.
not a lot of tire kickers out there because the buyers aren't going out with people who aren't pre-approved. So if you're just going out to look and you're not pre-approved, you're never going to get that house. You show up at an open house to look at the house, that's fine. But it's not realistic to think if you didn't go to a bank and get pre-approval, you're going to walk into an open house and make an offer and get it accepted. That's not going to happen. You have to be ready to go. You have to have the money in your wallet and ready to go. And because even though the interest rates are high, in our market here, Long Island, we still have low inventory and competition for these houses. We still have multiple offers. We still have long lines on open houses. And not every house, but the houses that are in diamond condition or that they're priced really properly, they're going to be competitive.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, things we didn't talk about today that might be good to let our consumers know?
For people looking to sell their homes, obviously give Mike a call. He's an outstanding real estate agent. We offer a staging line of credit that we offer consumers. It's they don't have to have equity in a house. The only thing they have to have is good credit and have intent to sell a home. So basically, we give you a line of credit, like a credit card, pretty much, and they can use that up to $50,000 to make improvements to better your home, to your point,
Right.
and make that house close to diamonds and get more money for it, get more buyers.
Right, so
more
maybe you're
attention
doing
for
a
it.
kitchen, or maybe you're finishing off a driveway or a patio.
It's a 12-month balloon. No pre-penalty payment. You just use it, pay it, reuse it, repay it. It's great for investors too. Again, it doesn't have that. You don't have to have equity in the house to use it.
So many things to consider, lots of different strategies. Most of us are naive to it. I mean, we have no reason to be experts on it until we become a home buyer. And again, another reason why you want to contact agent or your loan officer early and discuss with them your plans and what you're thinking, and together formulate a strategy on what's going to work best for you. Well, this was great afternoon, Todd. Thank you for coming in and
Thank you
being
so
on the
much
show.
for having me.
Thanks so much.